never got the improvements that we were promised. And this crumbling infrastructure isn't just inconvenient, it's costly and it's potentially deadly as we are talking about, right? So transportation systems, these are the connective tissue of our society, and in East Portland, those systems are on life support. So we need to rebuild our infrastructure, not just repair it with band-aid solutions. Our kids really need safer routes to schools. We need our streets to be prioritized for upgrades and improvements. We need to aggressively invest in infrastructure like we do all other critical issues, because it's also important to remember that transportation investments are just good for everyday people, they're good for small businesses, and they're good for how we grow our community. So ultimately, I think what I'm saying is we need to lean into Vision Zero status with the more lighting, better crosswalks, ramps, barriers to protect bikers, marked bus lanes. We also know that the rate of injury and death increases drastically as driving speeds decrease, right? So we need to redesign our streets to reduce the speed in which people are driving. People are zooming through East Portland all the time, and we need to create infrastructure around slowing down our streets. But ultimately, we just need East Portland deserves safe streets. Everybody deserves to get to where they're heading in a safe way. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Candace. Candidate Steph Routh, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, I was hoping you were going to go with me next. I think what Loretta Smith and Candace Avalos just said go straight to my heart. When I became the executive director of Oregon Walks, I traded my winter holiday traditions with families to coordinating vigils for people who died while walking on our streets. So this, I feel very deeply what are issues related to traffic safety. And as both Candace and Loretta have mentioned, our investments, and as I shared at the top, our investments in East Portland have made it a convenient place to drive through. They have not made it a nourishing place to live in, and they have certainly not made it a nourishing place to walk in. Over 60% of our high crash corridors are in East Portland, and that is primarily, it has been by design situated in communities of color. And the recent pedestrian master plan that was updated in 2019 had a special focus group on walking while black, because there was there was a recognition that that black and brown communities are targeted for traffic violence. And street lighting is absolutely one of those pieces, and not just street lighting, but pedestrian scale street lighting, as well as crosswalks that are visible and make sense and reduce that those interactions. And there's also the signals of just the width of high crash corridors, and I think but the good news is, I think one of those pieces of developing walkable neighborhoods, which we can do around Place, um, they slow the traffic down. They also engage with economic prosperity, disability justice, aging in place, and community. My time is up. I could go on for a very long time. Thank you for this question.
Thank you, candidate Steph. Candidate David Lynn, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this really reflects the underinvestment in East Portland and how it has always been a lot of pass-through communities where people are expected to get through fast on their way to downtown instead of it being a safe and welcoming place for our communities, especially as we're talking about putting in so much more housing density and making these walkable communities. We need to have streets that are commensurate with that. I grew up on 82nd. I've seen how dangerous the intersections can be at 82nd and Division or 122nd and Stark. And we've seen some investment in that, but people really want to see more accountability. People want to see people being held accountable for running red lights, for reckless driving. Everybody who slows down to stop at the light can see the 2 or 3 people racing through at the end. And that kind of stuff is what creates the unsafe conditions in our community. And there's certainly a part of our community that's tired of being kind of like just thinking that if you put islands in the middle of the street, that will somehow reduce automatically traffic fatalities. We want to be definitely very data driven and targeted where we're making those investments, where we're slowing people down, and look at it holistically. Look at things like over serving of at our bars. look for other reasons why people are, being killed on our streets. And then we really need to invest in public transit. We have amazing public transit in the inner city, but out here it's abysmal. Many times, many bus lines end at 8 o'clock, and so there is no alternative except for people to walk in the dark, in the rain, on the streets, and on places like Powell where there's no sidewalks. So we really need that investment. We need to hold people accountable, and then we can really not have this false dichotomy. We can fix potholes and we can build safe and protected bike lanes at the same time.
Thank you, candidate David. Candidate Terrence Hayes, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I want to start by saying I feel like, Steph, transportation is not the strongest thing I bring. So I look at what Candace talked about and what everybody else talked about in the descriptions, and I say it's a lot of folks on here that understand that at a level that I don't. What I do understand is your question talked about the fact that Black people are more likely to be targeted, is what I'll call it, or folks are not going to slow down when they see Black folks at risk of traffic being harmed. That's a hard issue, right? When President Biden got in, we understand the hate that was happening towards the Asian community, and he created specific legislation for Asian hate. And the fact of the matter is, if the data shows that people are less likely to slow down for Black folks, we need to create legislation that holds them accountable. There's no amount of lighting, roads, bikes that's going to stop people from not seeing Black lives in the same way that they see their white or Hispanic or Asian counterparts. The problem is the heart. When people do not value Black lives, they do not feel like they should slow down, they should stop, or anything like that. That is a problem. That's a hard problem. And I agree with David. We need to have a certain level of accountability when we can see that you behaved in a manner that put specifically Black lives at risk. Legislators need to step up. And at the end of the day, there's nothing I can do under a city council level that's going to protect Black lives from people that do not value them on the road. If you're unwilling to slow down because you don't value Black lives, you're not going to do it because I told you to. We have to do more at every level to protect Black folks in this city.
Thank you, candidate Terrence. Candidate Hale Turn, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm glad everybody brought up the lighting issues and the sidewalk issues. I think those are a huge part of it to make East Portland safer. Transportation is a huge issue here for us. I mean, in some places, people have to wait on the trail to get on the bus, and furthermore, it's slow. It takes, a long time to get from point A to point B, and, people are just having to, are just having to take a long time to get to places. We've had our fair share of affordable housing here in East Portland. With increased traffic, people are rushing a little bit more to get from point A to point B. That creates a situation where folks are unsafe, and our street infrastructure doesn't help. Especially when crosswalks. If you haven't walked before, in some streets, by the time you reach the other side, it's telling you to, the red light comes on and tells you to stop walking. So, there are some things that we can do, like extending wait time on streetlights, simple things that can slow people down. The sidewalk investments, I think, also helps to slow traffic down. All in all, I think accountability is also an issue. Thinking of that incident where that particular individual was released from an incident that ended up assaulting that Asian individual at the park. Things like that can't happen. If people are caught doing something, they need to be held accountable, and we need to make sure that they're not right back on the streets, placing other folks at risk. So we need to continue to enforce the laws that we have in place and make sure that people are being real careful and real cautious, so that it doesn't impact anyone.
Thank you, candidate Kale. Just a reminder to make sure that you mute yourself when you are not speaking. Candidate Tamora Ender, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, thank you for this question. As a parent that lives near 122nd and Star, this is constantly on my mind. That intersection is statistically the most dangerous in the entire city. I had the privilege of serving on the board of Oregon Walks, where we took a comprehensive look at every single person, pedestrian, that was killed within the city of Portland between 2017 and 19. And so I am very aware of the statistics and have been engaged in a number of advocacy efforts around this issue. From a mechanics perspective, a lot of people mention that, so I'm not going to go into more detail other than to say things like pedestrian head starts that allow pedestrians across the street before the light turns green are a key thing. Left turn calming, which slows how drivers turn around a street, have had significant success in terms of reducing fatalities at those specific locations. Again, like David said, supporting public transit is key, and making sure people feel safe on transit through security and things like that. That makes a big difference. And also in terms of cameras, automated enforcement, East Portland has District 1 has about 2/3 of the city's automated enforcement cameras. I am someone that's going to be pushing for geographic equity so that we are not disproportionately collecting fines and fees from low-income communities of color in Council District 1. That's going to be a priority for me. But the truth is that 57% of fatalities occur on just 8% of streets. And so those streets warrant a disproportionate amount of our investment. And then I'll just go back to my overarching view. Again, some of the intersections where we see traffic crashes are the same intersections that we see gun violence at. And ultimately, my lens is going to be how we reduce life expectancy. If we can get a handle on some of these gun violence issues, if we can get a handle on some of these traffic fatalities, what we will see is less disparity between East and West of 82nd Avenue, and ultimately we'll be able to extend East Portland's health outcomes and life expectancy.
Thank you, candidate Tamor. Candidate Jamie Dunphy, you have 2 minutes.
Great, thank you. My colleagues have done a really good job of outlining this. I won't belabor the point, but as we've said, East Portland is home to the majority of the people of color. It's home to 41% of all the children in the city of Portland. It's also home to the majority of the lacking of sidewalks, unpaved roads, streetlights, and crosswalks. So I think it is worth noting I-84 West has no exits for the entire length of District 1. That is because that is a piece of infrastructure that was designed to get people through our community, not to our community. That means that our major arterials, like 122nd, Burnside, and Powell, and Division, and Gleason, have become de facto highways. And the behavior of a lot of that has become that. There are things that have happened in our community to try and affect community safety that have actually made things worse. The protected bike lanes that were designed for the Gateway neighborhood have increased the number of pedestrian accidents, and also at the same time decreased the amount of business to those businesses along the street. In some situations, in some communities where speed bumps and traffic slowing has been done, the community has pushed back really hard, and some of that infrastructure development has not worked in ways that the community really specifically mentioned that it was not going to work. And a lot of these speed bumps and traffic slowing is actually driving unsafe behavior onto residential streets away from main arterials. We need things that are done with us and for us, not just to us from an office on downtown. Some of the major ways that have not been mentioned specifically that I will say that the city council needs to focus on is bringing more jobs to East Portland so that fewer people are in their cars in the first place. The more we can address street homelessness and unhoused individuals, the fewer people who will be out in situations where they can often get hit. Homeless people end up being a disproportionate.
Thank you, candidate Jamie. We will now conclude with closing statements from the candidates in reverse alphabetical order, beginning with candidate Cale Turn. Cale, you have 1 minute.
Okay, hello. So our new model of government in Portland will give more representation and to a more diverse population in Portland. You'll get to elect the 3 that you wish to represent you, whether it's a person that has experience as a city administrator, a community advocate, a social worker, business owner, health workers. You get a variety of choice. If elected, I will bring to the city council my personal professional experiences to address housing shortage by exploring issues that causes people to lose their homes. I'll be working to build sidewalks and our street infrastructures through holding bureaus accountable for the work that they do and increase investments. With your help, I will also work to make sure that our city's first responders have the manpower and means to protect our city with, so everybody can feel safe. It's not, and let's not act like we have an unlimited amount of money. The only way we will be able to do this is to increase revenues. We support our local businesses.
Thank you, candidate Cato. Candidate Loretta Smith, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you for having this this forum this evening so that we can talk to the folks who support the Urban League and that you fight for every day. My eight years of experience as a Multnomah County Commissioner, it has taught me how to work with my colleagues on a variety of different issues, and I built great coalitions and meaningful policies. I have created over 110 actual policies that have my name on it. I've created more than anyone else that sat beside me. I know what it means to do constituent services, and that's why I'm excited about doing this right now. I see my videos now, but one thing is for sure, you will have a relentless champion in Loretta Smith by electing her to Portland City Council. I have experience and I have a track record and background and leadership, and you will always have an open door with a Loretta Smith City Councilwoman.
Thank you, candidate Loretta. Candidate Steph Ralph, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you, Leva Ford, for moderating. Thanks to Urban League and thanks to all of our co-hosts. I think you've heard we have an embarrassment of riches in District 1. We have just some phenomenal candidates. And I think, the unique value proposition that I bring is I have a pretty steep housing policy and transportation policy and about 20 years of community organizing, coalition building. I'm adjunct faculty at Portland State University, where I teach community organizing and social change in the Urban Studies and Planning department. And I'm just very grateful for this opportunity to share. And in 4 questions, you've just really covered a lot of ground. So thank you very much. I just have gratitude. Thank you. And I will now mute.
Thank you, candidate Steph. Candidate David Lynn, you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure, like many of my colleagues at this point in the race, I'm pretty tired of talking about myself. But yeah, so I hope my record, speaks for itself. 15 years in government, 8 years in college, studying to be good at just this job. But really what I'm most proud of is 20 years volunteering and fighting in the community in East Portland, and fighting, not pretending like I have all the answers, but that the community does. And that we can really empower our community to have their own vision and help facilitate that. And as a school board member, I've learned how that you have to work well with your other elected officials, and that we can really lean on each other, and we can really make a team out in here in East Portland that really does represent the community and brings its voice to City Hall. And so that's what I'm real passionate about. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate David. Candidate Terrence Hayes, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I hope my mic working. But what I've got out of this is that it's real easy to build advocacy organizations on the back of Black folks. It's very difficult to have real answers and solutions for that same community. We need leadership that can recognize that our most underrepresented community, when it does well, all of our city does well. When Black folks thrive, Portland thrive. When we struggle and suffer, Portland struggle and suffer. I hope that as a representative in City Council, that I can bring real solutions to rising gun violence, real solutions to the lack of home ownership in the Black community, and real solutions to our clean streets issues in this city. I just want to say that I love Portland. This city has been amazing to me and my family, and I definitely want to be a part of getting it back to that city that cares for all people. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Terrence. Candidate Tamor Ender, you have 1 minute.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'll just say, it's important that people in East Portland can see themselves reflected in the leadership of their city council. I'm proud to be from a working family, and I'm proud in a council district of over 100 languages represented to be the first Middle Eastern candidate for city council. Over the course of my 6 years in local government, I've managed scope, schedule, budget, and risk for city projects, and helped launch different programs like bike share and fixed speed safety cameras. And every time I've done this, I've always centered community, whether it's through focus groups or making sure the outcomes that we had met the goals of East Portland. In this new form of government, where whoever is elected will be one vote out of 12, the people who will be most successful are those who are kind, collaborative, and focused on outcomes. And that's what I intend to do. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Tamor. Candidate Jamie Dunphy, you have 1.
Perfect. Thank you. So I am Jamie Dunphy. Thank you all so much for having us tonight. This is a phenomenal forum, and thanks to all my colleagues who are also vying for the city council. I have been in public service in this community for 20 years. I truly love Portland. I went to high school in the city, and I have not had a chance to leave and go somewhere else because I love this place. But and being in public service for over 20 years does not naturally make me optimistic, but I am cautiously optimistic about the next chapter of what Portland can bring. I'm excited that we have the opportunity to meaningfully change how this system works and deliver real results for our community, but only if we hit the ground running. We cannot afford to have the city council, 12 new city council members learning on the job. I'm ready to lead on day one in this community and to help my fellow city council members who will be elected, who will be some raw talent, absolutely, and making sure that we can meaningfully deliver on the promise of what this new system is, because the promise of East Portland is unparalleled in our next chapter, and I'm excited to help lead that next part. Thanks, Jamie Dunphy. Have a good night.
Thank you, candidate Jamie. All right, thank you, candidate Jamie. Candidate Candace Avalos.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you again, Candace Avalos. I really enjoyed this opportunity, and I really enjoyed the questions. I thought they were very thoughtful and really particular for East Portland. East Portland has an opportunity to rewrite our story and our narrative. I think that we get painted with such a broad brush because nobody actually bothers to understand and get to know East Portlanders. When I'm knocking on doors, I'm seeing myself and my family story on that doorstep. We are home to almost 100 languages. Many of our small businesses are owned by immigrant and refugee community members. We are a community full of nurses and teachers and union trade workers and social workers and everything in between. And I will never promise to have all of the answers, but I will promise to value your voices and your trust. As a bilingual first-generation Blacktina, I would be proud to help amplify this community's voice in City Hall. So check out my website, and I hope to earn your support. CandaceForPortland.com. Thank you.
Thank you all. As tonight's candidates forum ends, I want to thank our partners at LNS Captioning and Open Signal who are airing this forum. We thank tonight's candidates who are running for City Council of District 1 for participating tonight, and our community partners. I also want to highlight the importance of voting. The deadline for register to vote for the election is October 15th, and Election Day is November 5th. Democracy only works when people vote. So get registered if you aren't, and vote. At the Urban League of Portland, much of our work is done with local partners who have our deep commitment to our shared values. We would like to thank the following partners: Reimagine Oregon, NCAA of Portland, Fair Housing Council, SEIU 49, Welcome Home Coalition of Black Men, Kairos, Muslim Education Trust, Women's Foundation of Oregon, YWCA, Impact Northwest, Children's Institute, NEA, Latino Network, Northwest Pilot Project, and Self-Enhancement Incorporated. In closing, please remember that the Urban League is a nonprofit that relies on donations and membership to serve the community. It is through your generosity that the Urban League of Portland can host forums and other events like this. Again, tonight's event was part of Urban League's series of virtual candidate forums for the general election. Please visit ulpdx.org to learn more about our series of events. If you need assistance voting or registering during the election season, staff at the Urban League are ready to talk to you. Reach out via their website, social media, or call 503-281-2600 for assistance. On behalf of the Urban League President Nikenge Harmon Johnson, the Board of Directors, and all our members, I thank you, our audience, for joining us tonight. I am Lieber Ford, the Executive Director for Women's Foundation of Oregon. Good night and stay safe.
Thank you.
Should we leave? Yes? No? Yeah.
Sorry, it's
we're
looking
all
here.
good over here at Open Signal. Thank you all.
Okay,
so
good. We cleared. Sorry, I was looking at Open Signal to be like, give us the clearance. Again, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. It was a great conversation. I think folks learned a ton, and we just really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Those were amazing questions.
Thank you.
We work hard. We work hard to ask some good questions. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, and have a great night, everyone.
Thanks so much, y'all. Appreciate it.
See you later.
Bye.
Thank you.